So we started to go into cyber insurance because primarily it was my background, and my business partner had spent the last 2 years consulting into AIG on their cyber products. He's a good friend of mine, and we'd always talked about starting a business, but we really felt we had the skill set to go after this and really tackle this problem. So it was more about our own individual skills than external factors.
Shruti?
Well, in my case, I would like to think I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, because I started noticing there's been an increase in risks, and I have a background in technology, and looking at how the cutting-edge technologies actually were used more to create products and sell to consumers, and much less so in solving the big business problems and also some of the big issues that was facing some kind of humankind. So as a management consultant, I always would get asked a question on how these extreme events were affecting the businesses. So that got me digging a little bit deeper and understanding what exists in the market today.
So background helps a little bit on the previous work. Ed?
Yeah, so is this on?
I can hear you.
So we started when Anton was actually doing a project on the drone industry at Imperial College London. That was his master's thesis, effectively. He was looking at how the drone industry was going to grow, what some of the major stumbling blocks might be. One of those was a lack of risk analytics. So he decided that, having identified that problem, he would go ahead and build it. So he partnered up with a doctor of artificial intelligence who was based there full time. They built the first version of the software, which became Flock. And simultaneously, by coincidence, I'd never met Anton, but I was working on a very similar field at Cambridge. So I was at the Judge Business School at Cambridge doing technology policy, which is a joint venture between the business school and the engineering department. Again, looking at this roadmap of drone tech, and basically realised a very similar thing to that which Anton had noticed, and so started writing papers and publishing reports and meeting people in the drone industry who shared this vision that there should be some form of intelligent risk analytics in the drone space. So a friend of mine who had actually started a company with Anton realised, hold on a minute, Ed and Anton have basically noticed the exact same thing here. Anton's doing it from a software perspective, Ed's noticed it from a kind of policy roadmap and technology roadmap perspective. The two should meet. I ended up meeting with Anton. We kind of riffed about how we could get into it and just quit our jobs and started a startup, basically. I was supposed to be working in the city. Anton, like I said, had founded this other tech startup, but we both thought we were onto something with Flock, so we quit our jobs, jumped into it, no business plan, no idea how we were going to make money. We just thought it was cool. And then it turned out that it was incredibly attractive to the insurance industry, who said, oh, hold on a minute, you've found the solution to complex risk analytics in the robotics space. It happened that we were looking at flying robots, so we made an app for people who fly robots, and that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Thank you, Ed. I remember meeting Ed over a year ago. I tried to convince him to come in my bootcamp.
Next time.
Next time. Go, Ken.
Yeah, I think likewise, personal touch or background. Our founder Ali, as I said in my presentation, used to work for Airbus in Germany, and then the topic he was studying was predictive maintenance, and then understanding the problems in advance before it happens. So he knows how important that was for the industry, and then he decided to start a company. And then, in particular to myself, why I joined that company, I've been to startup business for nearly 10 years. I've been running accelerator incubation programs, so I know how this business works. So, in entrepreneurship, to me, there are two types of startups. One of them is the opportunity gainers, the other one is the painkillers. So, I like to be with the ones who are painkillers rather than being opportunity gainers. So, I saw this project or this technology as a painkiller, and then I thought that this will work, and then that's why I joined that company.
Thank you, Doku. Next question for me is, what have been your successes and challenges? I'll start with you, Ed.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right, well, there's an obvious kind of one-word answer to both of those questions, which is Allianz. It's obviously our biggest success, and it's been our biggest challenge. So I'll give a kind of quick paragraph on both. Biggest success, obviously, world's leading aviation insurer, most trusted name in the industry, and couldn't be happier to have such an amazing branding behind us. I'm not going to say anything too bad because Tom Chamberlain, who I've been working with very closely at Allianz, is sat right there. But another element of success is actually meeting the general aviation team at AGCS at Allianz and working very closely with them, because we are a startup. We were 2 people when we started this. Now we're 6, but we don't have the kind of wealth of experience and expertise that Allianz can bring to the table. So having them on board, working really, really closely with them, being able to have them in our office, being a 15-minute Boris bike ride from them is completely transformative for us. It's like having a monster team of advisors on our side, which is incredibly valuable. Biggest challenge, again, landing the big fish is obviously a big challenge. We were quite fortunate. We were one of the first globally to be doing what we were doing. I also think we were doing it the best, to be completely honest, which is why we managed to land a company like Allianz. But when you've got a company that is hundreds of years old, operating in hundreds of countries and has processes in place that are not going to change very quickly, and suddenly a kind of fast-moving startup with a few young techies comes along and says, oh hey, we've got a new business model in a new industry, you have to convince a lot of people that you are doing things sensibly and you're not going to cause too much disruption inside their own business. So that was a massive challenge, but we got there in the end. Good job, Tom.
Well, you have organizations like Allianz, who actually probably, I would say, early adopters, who actually are making a lot of efforts to work with startups and change their internal processes to make that happen. So thank you, Allianz. Gokin.
Success and challenges. I think the biggest success we had so far is cooperating with General Electric, although they're one of our biggest competitors. We entered into their portfolio, and then we are one of their global startup partners, which is a good success, because in the world I believe that there are only a handful of companies can achieve this one. And then we are the first one who will be contributing to the first digital factory of General Electric quite soon. And they promised us to invest, I can't disclose the amount, but they promised to invest a huge amount, I can say only this word, in the near future if we achieve certain revenue. I think we will be able to do that one. And the biggest challenge is, our biggest customer is National Railway, Turkish National Railway. And then to me, it's really difficult to deal with the government. And then, for example, we had a demo for them, and then they didn't pay anything. And then, although they promised to buy a couple of more of our products in the near future, they haven't done so. And they waited for 1 year to order more. And then, the pictures I showed you, they ordered when our system realized the problems and then identified with our alarm system, and it's saying that most probably you will have a problem in that part of your mechanical system. And then they ordered 47 of our products recently, maybe 2-3 months ago. So in short, that is to say, it's not easy, or it's so difficult to work with governments, especially if you are in hardware B2B business.
So you think, from a government perspective, it's because of their processes, or because of the fact that they have to approve everything?
Yeah, I think because of the bureaucracy first, and I think it's more of like their mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to convince them this is highly needed. You need to have a kind of showcase. They need to feel that they will really need that one. They need to learn they are learning by experience. Yeah.
Shruti?
Maybe I'll start with the challenge first.
Okay.
Our biggest challenge has been communicating our message, what we do to this startup industry, which actually wants to listen in 30 seconds or less. I tend to believe that there are some things in life that is not simple and can't be, and oversimplifying things like what we are saying in our political system can actually, you'll stop being truthful. So that's been our biggest challenge. But on the success side, we are getting an enormous interest from the insurance industry, especially the business groups. nearly 26 of the insurers that we have, 19 of the 26 insurers we have presented to want to work with us. And of course, and also winning an award against the biggest incumbents, that is for the Risk Modeling Technology of the Year award. It wouldn't have been possible without Startup Bootcamp, as well as the support that we have got from the insurance partners.
Thank you.
I'd say our biggest success is actually having our technology and people believe in it. So we spent the last year developing our technology, and every time we would turn up to meetings, we would have sort of half-built demos, kind of showing what we were planning on building, and no one really believed that it existed until we got to a point now where everything is fully automated and completely works, and we turn up to a meeting, people, when we walk in, they still don't think it exists, and then we see it, and we do real-time live demos on live customers, and people believe that it's there and it works, and it's great. That feeling you get back from them after so much hard work is our biggest success. Biggest challenge, probably similar, trying to get that first customer. When you're a startup, it's very difficult to try and convince someone to put pen to paper and actually give you their money and be the first one. But yeah, we've got there as well, so another success.
That's cool. Who is a startup in the room, please? Okay. And everybody else is corporate or in between? Okay. So I'm going to ask another question. How many startups do you think are there? Can somebody throw a number in the financial and insurtech space? How many startups do you think are there already trying to design solutions to challenge the current industry?
Globally?
Globally, yes.
1,100?
Tens of thousands. So, I mean, we monitor around probably 400,000 startups, and there are probably 20,000 startups emerging every month globally. And when you start looking at the type of solution those guys are doing in the insurance technology space, in commercial it's a much smaller segment, but it's a segment which is increasing all the time. There's probably around 200 to 300 startups at the moment, depending as to how you look at the problem, including, for instance, solution like Goken, you can then reach up to 1,000 or 2,000 startups. So you always have to look at the problem slightly differently, because then when you start looking at things like industrial IoT, drones, and industrial robotic, which actually are used now to address problems in commercial entities, so therefore would impact commercial lines, then you have a really big segment of the market which can solve large commercial line problems. So what would you recommend, and we'll start with Richard, to a startup to actually do the right thing? So what would be your maybe 3 focus areas to be successful, learning from your experience?
Product.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have a product, it's something people can buy. Without a product, you don't really have anything. Building a product that people actually want should be the focus, and then delivering it and selling it should be easy if it's something people want.
So how long did it take you to validate your product?
So we ran probably around 4 or 5 different pilots over the course of the last year, and starting from the very, very, very early days when the technology was sellotaped and glued together. Every single one, we took the feedback and rolled it back into our development process, and we kept going, making sure the product is exactly what our customers want, and now it is there. So.
How many meetings did you have to get there?
Lost count. Probably at least 100.
Shruti?
Yeah, I would second that, definitely product, but at the same time, I would advise any startup coming into this, especially the insurtech field. Insurance is a complicated subject, especially when you're talking about commercial lines. So I would advise every startup to take time to understand the industry in depth, and also think through every aspects of the business and draw what would be the challenges and what would be and come up with a plan A, plan B to circumvent it. Because when you start your company, you'll come across several different challenges at every step. So that can help.
So I think both really good points, obviously. On a slightly more kind of philosophical or, I don't know, personal level, one thing I keep on encountering in the startup space is secrecy and founders being very secretive and very protective about what they're doing because they think that someone else will steal it. And I think I was like that as well, you know, a year and a half ago. But I think
I remember. I do remember.
I think it's a big problem, and I think it doesn't help anyone. And the person it helps the least is the founder. And I know it sounds really counterintuitive, but being incredibly open about what you're doing and speaking to everyone about it and giving presentations and showing how it works. I mean, I literally went through, you know, 3 examples of exactly what we do for this thing to work. If someone's going to steal your idea because they've seen you give a presentation for 5 minutes or because they've had a chat with you in a pub, if they're going to steal your idea and do it better than you, then you probably were never going to succeed. The chances are you have more industry knowledge, you have more passion for the idea, you've already formed the connections that can enable you to do it and made those partnerships and friendships or whatever it is. So I would massively encourage founders to be kind of very, very open, especially in the really early stages. A, because it stops them from going off a path that doesn't make any sense, because feedback from your friends and family, customers, is all really, really valuable, especially in the early stages. And B, because just by being open and passionately telling people about why you think you're going to change the world or change an industry or build something cool, you will be amazed at how many people come back to you and say, oh, that's amazing, I really want to help. I happen to have a friend who works in the industry, he could be an advisor, or, oh, I've got £20,000 lying around, do you need some investment? Which is all stuff that's happened to us just as virtue of us being open about what we've built, and there haven't been any negative consequences yet. I'll just say yet to make sure.
I mean, the point and getting feedback from the customer. Often we meet startups which come through the bootcamp, and at one point or another would say to me, I hope you're not going to get to competitive startups next year, another bootcamp. And it's not a choice, you know, we try to avoid the things, but if there is competition, it means the idea is a great idea. So you can only improve upon it. Go through.
Passion. Yeah, I totally agree with all these points. And then, as a last comment, yeah, you know, all this stuff, being lean and mean, be open, decrease, or keep as short as possible for your product development cycle. And then, I think the most important asset is you. And then if you have a passion, you can overcome all other difficulties. You can even change your business model, you know, as we've seen here. I think as long as you have the passion, and then it's a full-time business. It's not part-time, or like I've seen many people who are working for the university and then getting government grant and start their own business. I haven't seen any kind of exception and all these businesses are failing. So it's a full-time business. Dedicate yourself give yourself a time, maybe it's a 1 year or 2 year. It's a great journey. It's really great fun. Just try it.
Okay. Is there any question in the audience? Burning question. Look, we have 2 burning questions. Let me see whether I can come your way. Can, look at that.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to say congratulations first, because we had a lot of talk about hype versus impact, and I think you've developed really impactful solutions that genuinely solve problems. The only problem is that you seem to have developed solutions for everyone in some ways, so you actually get spoiled for choice in who your customer's going to be, because you've got, I think, across cyber and across infrastructure and across drones and the whole spectrum of ideas that we're seeing here. You could either appeal to the sort of risk management side of the actual end client, or you could appeal to the insurer that's going to try and price them. So how do you choose who your customer is?
Yeah, good question. So it's actually hits the nail on the head for us. Like, it's something that we battle with internally as well, because we can only service the customer, who is the drone pilot, and agree with don't try and hit everyone at the same time. So we have a very target market. Unfortunately, the drone insurance market, choosing a target within that is quite small, but it's fine, we're starting with that. And we're building a product that serves them, but we can only serve them if we have a brilliant risk management and risk intelligence solution, which is a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because it's very difficult to build, because we're gathering data sets from 18 sources, We're doing quite complex analytics on that data, and it has to be very, very up to scratch all the time, 24/7, no downtime, and so on. But it's also a blessing in that it helps us to build a pretty wide moat around what we're doing. We've had to do it with that kind of two-pronged approach, because a pay-as-you-fly insurance solution for robots just cannot make sense if there's no deep risk analytics involved, or you're going to get burned when someone crashes into the shard. So it's just a kind of something we've had to deal with, and we have many sessions where we're kind of banging our heads on the table trying to make the risk intelligence good enough to have good pricing, when we realise that we just want to deliver value to the customer. But thankfully we have got to that stage now where we've got that kind of activation energy on the risk intelligence side, and we can just go ahead and launch our product, and then it's all going to be about making sure we're delivering the best solution to the customer. But yeah, it's a brilliant point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll go back to my previous point. In fact, our tech. Okay. Yeah. Even with our technology, there's many different applications. For us, when we were looking at it, it goes back into thinking who we need to serve first. In fact, the choice came naturally for us because there was a lot more interest coming. From the insurance space, but then we went back to the drawing board and started seeing who all this technology applies for, and then we had a thought through this, again going back to my point, thinking through how this entire industry works, what is this 4 layers, corporates, insurers, reinsurers, capital markets, and then we had a discussion on where we start first, and our decision.
I'll use someone else's, sorry. It's your microphone giving feedback, so if you don't want to use someone else's. Lucky you're not singing.
Yeah, I mean, it was the right time because we were getting more interest from the insurance market at the same time. It kind of matched, the timing matched.
So pretty much every other conversation we've had, people have said, why don't we go into a traditional risk management? And the thing that really makes us different is that we're focusing on cyber insurance. So there are other companies looking at the kind of the same problem, but they're trying to use the same data and do one cut for vendor risk management, one cut for IT risk, one cut for cyber insurance. But just by having our very targeted focus, all of our data is mapped exactly to cyber insurance policies and cyber insurance wording. So it's really built, designed for our end user in a way that they can understand. So while using insurance terminology, it might not necessarily apply in the wider space. However, the back end can be used for sort of risk management in that side in the future. So if we do want to kind of pivot and start looking at other areas, we can absolutely do that. But in our infancy, we're just very, very targeted.
I think this is a great question. While you're in an idea level, you have various assumptions for various parts of your business, like who will be your customer segment, value proposition, revenue model, etc. I think this is an assumption too. And while doing that assumption, I would highly recommend to consider a group of customers for which your technology is urgent, important, and who will be able to pay for your product or services. That's quite important, I guess.
I'll just add one more thing, which is kind of semi-related, but I think it's an anecdote which I'm really interested to explore further personally, which is from a risk management perspective in the drones industry. It's a kind of super high-tech industry. A lot of the software companies operating inside it are at the absolute kind of cutting edge of what can be done in terms of software right now. And I've spent a bit of time out in kind of Silicon Valley meeting these companies and understanding how we can work with them. And it's really interesting because they are building phenomenal solutions from a risk management perspective. Really crazy tech. Like these guys, we went to a company called Drone Deploy, which is like one of the largest software company in terms of servicing drone users. And they've got 65 of the world's best developers working inside their offices. They're building stuff in VR. It's absolutely nuts, right? But then you show them that you built an insurance solution that uses real-time data, and they're like, "Oh my God, how have you done this?" And the reason is, in my opinion, a very simplified reason, is that we're in London, which is just the absolute heart of insurtech. So we're, like I said, 15-minute cycle from the biggest insurers in the world. we can go in there and run through our products with them and iterate our product. That's something that just cannot be done yet to the same extent, even in Silicon Valley. So I think another kind of message is capitalise on where you are. If you're building a startup in London, there is such amazing talent and access to insurance talent especially, and fintech talent in London, which doesn't exist in San Francisco. So capitalise on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Insurers have to travel to San Francisco actually. But we have amazing solution being designed here in London because of what Ed is saying. So when we go to the US, what we find it tends to be quite narrow, some of the things which are being developed. I think we have another question here.
I have a question to Ed. How do you and Allianz handle a claim process? Is it automated?
Yes and no. The reason I say yes and no, we have a plan, a pipeline of what our product looks like over time, and it will be iterated over the next few weeks and months. The way that we want our claims to ultimately work, it will be done through the app, and it will be the simplest, cleanest claim process in the industry. That's our North Star. The way it will work is, when you crash, you simply go to the flight, we store all your flight logs and everything like this. You go to the flight that you crashed in, you say, I want to make a claim without a crash. We ask you a series of questions, very, very simple. You fill out some boxes. I crashed because of this, the result was this, it happened at this time, here are some photos. You take the photos through the phone, they're geolocated, they're time-stamped. All of that information gets packaged up and sent to us and to Allianz. Now, we then append to that automatically real-time information at the time of your crash. So let's say it's a summer's day, there's a 1 meter per second wind, and you crashed your DJI drone into a tree, and we say, why did you crash? And you say, oh, there was a 55 mile per hour wind, I was blown off my feet and my drone got smashed into a tree. Now, we now, as insurers and as risk analytics experts, can see, well, we know the exact wind speed at the time of the crash. We have that information, we have that confirmed from our data provider. We know exactly where you were because we have access to your mobile phone and to your drone data logs. So we make the claims process really, really nice from the customer side, who no longer has to spend 4 hours on the phone explaining what happened and then having to explain it again in 2 months' time because the insurer lost the information. Rather, we collect that all through the mobile phone in the way that you would kind of send a text message. And we make it much better from the claims side on the insurer's side, which allows us ultimately to drive down prices, because we can identify fraud unbelievably easily by reconciling the data that's presented from the customer with the data that we collect in real time. And that's another reason why I think this kind of real-time solution to insurance is going to be so, so important going forward.
So we have one more question. Anyone want to ask a last question? I will ask it. What would be the recommendation or the few words you leave behind the audience here today? Around maybe working with you, maybe being inspired? I'll start with you.
Be passionate. And also I would like to thank you, Sabine, for your great program, Startup Bootcamp, and you have been implementing it quite well. And thanks for inviting us here.
It comes from the transportation early program, so it comes from one of our 20 programs.
So yeah, first I want to share the thanks, and thanks for having us on the stage here. It's genuinely a massive honour. My takeaway would be, because so few people put their hands up when asked who works in a startup, would be just take the plunge and start a company. If you've got expertise, if you know intelligent people, and if you're in London, and if you're fortunate enough to be able to, just do it, because the worst thing that could possibly happen is you learn loads and meet loads of people. So that would be my advice.
Shruti?
Again, thanks for having us on the stage today as well, and supporting us throughout. We have been new to the insurance industry, and Startup Bootcamp was, so even before, even being new to the insurance industry, we feel like we know quite a lot, and it wouldn't have happened without the support of the Startup Bootcamp. But I would say, when we are talking about commercial insurance, there's two challenges. That is also one from the investment side, and the second, speaking of data and business data, this becomes crucial because as startups we are hurrying to or focusing on several different use cases and so on. It's very important to encourage the right technologies to come to forefront, meaning using the right ways, because even the governments and everything are looking at the right kind of use of data, if GDPR is any indication. So I think from the commercial insurance standpoint, that is something that the startup needs to start looking for as well. And in terms of the investment, it seems to me that it's always easier to understand as a consumer what makes sense to a consumer side. But on the commercial insurance side, it's much hungry for innovation and definitely needs some capital. So we request the investor also to look a little bit deeper and understand the market much more and support the commercial insurance side.
I realise I'm between everyone on the bar, so I'll keep it quick. I'll just say if you work for a big corporate and you're looking to engage with startups, you should do it. There's so many great startups in London, so many fantastic accelerators and programs. Get involved and hopefully they can help your businesses innovate and create new things.
Thank you, Richard. Those last words are really, really key. I used to work for big companies myself, so now I work for startup, and it's very humbling to actually help companies like this make a difference in the insurance sector. So please, let's give a big round of applause to our panelists.